Anine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we have a good show. Everyone's excited to continue reading. So which chapter are we on? Testing you here.
Chapter 13.
13, correct. Hare Krishna. Today we're looking at texts 6 and 7. What I thought I'd do is just read the texts, just to just remind us of the context, because we're just in the beginning of the chapter. So there's no harm just reading the texts. Sure. Oh. You can see Bhagavad Gita?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. Hare Krishna. Okay, so nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness is the name of this chapter, chapter 13. And I just read the verses up to 6 and 7, up to 5, okay? I'll try not to comment on them. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge, and the object of knowledge." Okay. Krishna answers, "This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field." Text 3. O Shaina Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies. And to understand this knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Long purport there. Hare Krishna. Number 4. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who that know of the field of activities is, what his influences are. 5. That knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in a Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. And here we are, Hare Krishna. So someone would like to read these text 6 and 7 together? Is there any immediate questions before we begin? We're all clear of where we are relatively, okay, what we've discussed is quite philosophical. Within the whole Bhagavad Gita is quite philosophical, but it's quite detailed. This is more in the subject of Sankhya, okay, which means to analyze the elements. Okay, so, and yeah, I was just thinking just beforehand that there is a certain experience that comes upon meditating upon the details or Sankhya of the detailed study of the world in this light. Okay, did that make sense? What I'm trying to explain is that when you hear about this subject of Sankhya, it gives you it takes your mind and intelligence out of the immediate difficulties that we face. And we look at ourselves and we look at life from a more objective point of view, like a helicopter. You know, like helicopter goes up, then it sees the broad perspective. So that's what it's like when you study Sankhya or you study Bhagavad Gita. You kind of, this knowledge, it's like a helicopter going up, and you can more than it takes you above your subjective view. So in that sense, it can help to create a sense of detachment. Okay? I don't know if you understood that.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. Yes, good, fantastic. Okay, okay, Madhu Mangoji, you can begin.
Yeah,
You have your hand raised.
thank you. Text
Don't always questions, welcome comments as we go. Please feel free. Text 6 and 7.
Text 13, 6 and 7. Mahabhutani ahankaro bodhir avyaktam eva cha indriyani dasaikam cha pancha chedriya gocharaha ichadvesha sukham dukham sangatas driti dritihi
Takes a few.
etat kshitram sameshana savikaram udathritam. Translation: the five great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, the 10 senses, and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the eagerness, the life symptoms, and convictions. All these are considered, in summary, to be the field of activities and its interactions. Purport: from the authoritative statements of the great sages, the Vedic hymns, and the aphorism of the Veda Sutra, the components of this world can be understood as follow. First, there are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. There are the 5 great elements, Mahabhuta. Then there is a false ego.
These are the 5 great elements. Yeah.
These are the 5 great elements. Then there are false ego, intelligence, and the unmanifested stages of the 3 modes of nature. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge: the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The 5 working senses: voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. Then above the senses there is the mind, which is within and which can be called the sense within. Sense within. Therefore, including the mind, there are 11 senses altogether. Then there are the 5 objects of the senses: smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. Now, the aggregate of these 24 elements, it is called the field of activity. If one makes an analytical study of these 24 subjects, then he can very well understand that the field of activity. Then there are the desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are interactions, representations of the 5 great elements in the gross body. The living symptoms represented by consciousness and convictions are the manifestation of the subtle body, mind, ego, and intelligence. These subtle elements are including within the field of activities. The 5 great elements are a gross representation of the false ego, which in turn represents the primal stage of false ego, technically called the materialistic conception, or tamasa buddhi, intelligence in ignorance. This further represents the unmanifested stages of the 3 modes of material nature. The unmanifested modes of material nature are called pradhana. One who desires to know the 24 elements in details along with their interactions should study the philosophy in more detail. In Bhagavad Gita, a summary only is given. The body is the representation of all the factors, and there are changes of the body, which are the 6th in number. The body is born, it grows, it stays in processes by products, then it begins to decay, and at the last stage, it vanishes. Therefore, the field of non-permanent material things. However, the Kshetrajan, the knower of the field, is its proprietor is different.
Okay.
Thank you.
Quite technical.
Yeah, and complex too.
Yeah. There I ask questions.
Yeah, I have a question. What is unmanifested? It's spoken twice. It's spoken in the translation.
Yeah.
The unmanifested, and then further on in in the purport it said modes of nature.
Yeah. I also took note of that as well. But then
Yeah.
Prabhupada, yeah, this is discussed in the throughout the Bhagavatam actually in different places. But I'm remembering specifically second canto it's described, and where Sukadev Goswami describes the details of creation. So the unmet or the pradhan, that's the material. So when it says the three modes of material nature, that is the material world, that is the material elements, because everything in the material world is constituted of one of the three modes of material nature. And that will be described chapter 14 onwards, all the way up to chapter 18. Now, before that is injected with the creative potency of the Lord, it is known as pradhan. So that's before, now that's why it's called the unmanifested.
Okay.
Done. But then when it's injected by the power, which is the glance actually, and of Lord Shiva, yeah, and he injects time, and that's when things begin to move and create within the span of time, which is energy which Krishna injects into the unmanifested material elements. Okay, so then it's described and how everything manifests from there on after. But it all starts here. Here it says the five great elements are gross representations of the false ego, which in turn represents the primal stage of false ego, technically called the materialistic concept, or tamasi buddhi, intelligence in ignorance. So that's where the whole thing starts. That's the misidentification of the jiva as being a separate purusha, as being an enjoyer. So to facilitate that, there has to be a playground. Yeah. So this material world is just like a playground. So we can live out the illusion of being separate purushas and enjoyers, and the whole apparatus is given to us by the Lord. Is that okay? That I gave it.
Yeah, it has. It's yeah. So, from
Yeah.
my understanding, from what you said, is there's two. The unmanifested can be concept can be taken into two, where it was before and after. So
Yeah.
after creation, the unmanifested becomes the three modes of nature, which is part of the material realm. And the same manifested before is not that basically.
Yeah. It's like the there's the there was Atrasago Vishagashtastanam Posanam Odaya. Then there is the first creation. The Lord actually creates Brahma, and he creates the apparatus of which Brahma then creates further. Does that make sense? So yeah, so two stages of creation. All right.
Yeah.
So this whole the
five elements is earth, water, that false ego is our own, which is part of the jivatma. Translation. I mean the translation. The five elements is earth, water, ether, and all of that. Then false ego, intelligence. The unmanifested is what you just said now.
yeah.
The
Are
10
you reading from the Are you reading from the purport? Yeah.
I'm reading from the translation.
Translation. Okay. Yeah. That's a question, or are you just clarifying?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand. So I'm trying to understand the unmanifested here in the translation. I think I kind of make sense of it now.
Yeah. Okay. So this is mentioned also 7th chapter. Bhumi apo nalo vayo kama manava evacha hankaya ityame bina prakriti astita aparasitastvanyam prakriti vidime puram jiva bhuta mahabaho yayatam dayate takat. So there's earth, water, fire, air, ether, then mind, intelligence, and false ego.
Yeah.
And then you have the jiva, who is trying to lord it over, is trying to control these resources of material nature and becoming entangled. Yeah. Because because they themselves are playing the position of little gods or purushas. So one becomes entangled in
So
desire.
after the 5 senses, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate. What does the aggregate mean?
I think aggregate means and the total altogether. Let's look. Yeah, aggregate.
Yeah, sum. Aggregate in
The whole
math, the
formed of
sum.
combining separate elements. Yeah. So the aggregate.
Okay. The sum of everything.
Yeah.
And what would the life symptoms mean and convictions? Life symptoms and convictions.
Well, that was described in the previous purport, where different levels of consciousness is described, from anamaya, pranamaya. Then you got anamaya, pranamaya. So pranamaya means you you are aware that you exist. You have an existential understanding that you exist. Life symptoms. And then from that, you got your convictions, which depends on the modes of material nature. Yeah, it's quite detailed. Yeah. And it's all represented by the body. Everything. This is the field. Okay. This is the field which we, the soul, move in. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, how to get out of this entanglement? That's the next verses 8 to 12. Yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments? Yeah. Yeah, this is a type of purport where good if you got a pen and paper and you can write down. Yeah. You got the gross elements, then the subtle elements, then the knowledge acquiring senses, the working senses, etc. Yeah, you can, and then above all of that, right at the end. However, the Setragan here, therefore, the field
the
is
proprietor is different. So is that Krishna, the Paramatma?
Yeah, it's both. The Setragan is the jiva. Yeah, he is the proprietor, and he is the knower, but of his body only.
Okay.
Then you got the Supreme Lord, who's the knower of all bodies, and is the ultimate proprietor.
Yeah.
All right. So this field is non-permanent material thing. Okay. However, the Setragan, the knower of the field, its proprietor is different. Yeah, and that we discussed as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other question or comment? So the next verses 8 to 12, Prabhupada gives a very extensive purport on these, and it's very interesting. This guy's, so in order to elevate oneself, then one has to develop one knowledge. Yeah. And here's the symptoms of knowledge. Here's the items of knowledge, which is described. Okay. So as you can see, this purple, Prabhupada's going to describe each one. Okay. Yes. So someone like to read, and we'll probably stop during the purple one.
I can read.
Yeah, have a go at these verses.
Amani, what's the meter, Prabhu? Adi
Amanidvam adambidvam
ahimsa
ahimsa
kshantajavam Achapasanam Saucham
Stairam
Kailam Atma Vinigraha Indriyateshu Vairagyam Anahankara Evacha Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadya Dukkha Dasharam Asaktir Anabhisvagai Putra Dhara Gradeshu Nityam Cha Samachitvam Istani Stopatisu Mai Chananya Yogena Bhaktir Avyabhicharani Vivikta Desha Savitvam Aratir Jana Samsadhi Adhyatma Jnana Nityatvam Tattva Jnanartha Darshanam Etad Jnanam Iti Proktam.
Ganam yat atonyata.
My God. It's translation.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge. And besides this, whatever they may be, is ignorance.
Is ignorance.
Hear me.
All right, so how should we go about this? Let's just open up. Is there any questions that come to mind about the verse? Okay.
I think we'll have to take one verse at a time because it's quite detailed.
Yeah, what we do is where here Prabhupada takes each item of knowledge and then he elaborates on it. So we can do like that. We can read a paragraph and then open up for questions or comments. But yeah. So just these are the this is how, yeah, excuse me. This is the development. It's good trying to sneeze here. Yeah. This is not the knowledge you would have learned in school, okay? Or in university. This is the knowledge by which we can transcend this material entanglement. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's get into it. Okay, you can read the first paragraph, Mother. Mother
Okay.
Sudhami Radhika.
Yeah, sure. This process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent men as being the interactions of the field of activity. But actually, this is a real process of knowledge. If one accepts this process, then the possibility of approaching the absolute truth exists. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements as described before. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of the 24 elements. And the process of knowledge as described here is the means to get out of it. Of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Mai Chananya Yogena Bhakti Aya Vicharini. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. But if one takes to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop within him. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5:18-12, Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunay tatra samasta sura. All the good qualities of knowledge develop in one who has attained the stage of devotional service. The principle of accepting a spiritual master, as mentioned in the 8th verse, is essential. Even for one who takes a devotional service, it is most important. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, clearly states here that this process of knowledge is the actual path. Anything speculated beyond this is nonsense.
Nonsense. Okay, Hare Krishna. So, a few important points to bring out here. Devotees, there's a few more devotees with us this evening. So, if you like to ask a question, you can use the chat as well. I've got the meeting chat thing up on my screen. So, if that's easier for you, you can type away in the chat or make any comments. We'll see if we can get used to using that. Okay. But anyway, let's just ask any questions or comments here. What's the most essential of these items that Prabhupada mentions here?
Devotional service, unalloyed,
Yeah.
take spiritual master. Tells at
Well,
the end.
both, yeah, because from the spiritual master, one learns how to practice bhakti, and particular type of bhakti.
Unalloyed devotional service
Yeah.
to the
Avyapacharini. Yeah. See, that's the process by which one's original qualities as a servant of Krishna become manifest. Yeah, so, and then Prabhupada quotes this verse, which we've quoted, Prabhupada quotes a few times in Gita. Yes, this here. This verse here. Yeah.
Yeah.
12. Yashasti Bhakti Bhagavati Kinchanai. So Bhagavati, so a Kinchana Bhakti. So that means pure devotional service. Then all the good qualities of the
Sarvaguna.
arise. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can.
How do we define Bhagavati Akinchana? So how do we know that our bhakti is Akinchana? Akinchana means no money, no gold. Akinchan. Kinchan is
Kinchana
gold.
Bhakti. I have one godbrother called a Kinchana. Yeah. It can, yeah, it does. It means that also it can mean in the context of being materially exhausted, in a sense that there is nothing for you here in this world anymore. Twama kinchana gochara. Yeah, there is nothing within this world for, say, someone who's practicing a kinchana bhakti. There is no wealth. There is nothing. There is no material arrangement. There is nothing in this world that can give one satisfaction.
Or shall we say nothing alluring in this world that gives?
Yeah, one is not attracted to anything in this world. I mean, you can use it for a renounced sadhu, but it can be used in the context of someone who has, even if they're not a renounced sadhu, but they're doing their, they have their situation within the world, but they're not attached to it. There is nothing in this world which can give them any, which they see cannot do anything for them. Twama kinchana gochara. They are materially exhausted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments on that? It's a good point, no, a kinchana bhakti. It doesn't mean you have to give away all your wealth and empty your bank account and then you're practicing the kinchana bhakti. It just means...
It also means the desire, isn't it? For desire for material, whatever.
Yeah.
Pride, whatever, popularity and everything else that comes with ego, subtle ego.
Yeah.
Also.
So akincana, one's practicing that type of devotion where one is completely dependent upon Krishna, and one gets one's sustenance from Krishna, one gets one's sense of well-being from Krishna. Yeah. There's nothing within the material world for a devotee. So that's kinchana bhakti. Yeah. Okay. And then Prabhupada brings up this point as well. The principle of accepting the spiritual master, that's mentioned in the 8th verse, is essential. Yeah. Even for one who takes to devotional service, it is most important. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. Yeah. Okay. And now Prabhupada is going to go into explaining these different items. Okay. Oh, there's okay, just looking in the chat, it's telling me. Okay. Some devotees, Radhe Sham's left, Nitai Mata left, Luda left. I think sometimes they have trouble coming in. So they leave and then I have to let them back in again. Okay. So let's read on, unless there's any other questions or comments out there. Yeah. So Prabhupada's highlighting the important parts of this verse. Now he's going to explain each of these. Okay. Does someone else like to read this paragraph here?
Yes, Prabhu, I can read it.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks. As for the knowledge outlined here, the items may be analyzed as follows. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others, but from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not the body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. People are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently, sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following religious principles, and then wants to advertise himself as a religious mentor. As for the actual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items.
Okay, thank you. So that's Adam Bitvam, Aman Bitvam. How's it? Aman Vitvam, Adam Bitvam. So humility and pridelessness. Okay. Any initial questions on this or
I
comments?
think Prabhupada is making, comment on others who sort of come in, have some religious and then they become a mentor without actually embodying these characteristics.
Yeah. So so it's quite deep in that respect. It can be quite subtle.
Yeah.
Under the name of being a religious mentor, one attracts followers. Yeah. But that sometimes subtly that can, act to increase one's pride. Yeah. And they said they want to advertise themselves as a religious savior for mankind,
Yeah.
It may just be it may just be false pride. Yeah. So it's very subtle. Yeah. So here is humility means one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. Yeah.
But then even in Bhagavatam, there has been situations where, people felt that they haven't been honored. There was a Sabha sitting, I can't remember the names. Shiva felt, Parvati felt this thing that Shiva was not honored. And these are great people. They feel that they have not been honored.
Yeah, but from the again, from the objective point of view, for example, she gave the example of Lord Shiva. This is in a Daksha Yagna.
Mm.
I mean, he was dishonored by Daksha. Yeah, and but to begin with, Daksha himself, he felt, because he was very proud, is a good example, he was very proud, because Lord Shiva didn't give him any specific respect, if I can, yeah, he didn't bow to him. Then because he was very proud, then he became offended by that.
Mm.
And then he began to blaspheme Lord Shiva. But Lord Shiva himself, because he has no false concept of this, he has no false ego, then he didn't take offense to that.
But Parvati took offense to that, no?
Yeah. Parvati took offense to that, and also others in the assembly, because it doesn't mean that that there's no respect given. It is only natural that, for instance, Lord Shiva should be respected. So Parvati was very disappointed at her father in a way that that he treated Shiva. So you understand, it doesn't mean that we disregard all respect within society. We should respect everyone, and juniors should respect elders, and students should respect teachers. And those who are in a lesser role should respect those who are in a higher role. Yeah. But in a material world, for ourselves personally, we should not be anxious to be praised by others. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it? So, yeah. Any other questions out there? There's quite a few devotees with us today. Yeah. And then Prabhupada mentions here, as for actual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items. Okay, so you can have a honest introspection. Okay. So normally here, let's go back here. One should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. Now, this will manifest specifically when you're dishonored. How do you feel when you're dishonored? Are you very disturbed? Yeah, that's normally, you could say, the test. Yeah, and the fact is that in this material world, you are going to be dishonored. You're going to be misunderstood. You're going to be, etc. Yeah. So we have to learn humility. And that's real knowledge, actually. That's real knowledge. Who's an example in the Bhagavatam, 10th canto, of someone who is very proud, and the Lord took a very strong stance towards him?
Indra?
Indra's one, but I'm thinking of someone else. If I mentioned Lord Balaram.
Ramaharshana.
Yeah, Ramaharshana. Yeah. He was a disciple of Srila Vyasadeva. And he was a sutta, which means he wasn't a Brahmin exactly. He was suttas. They're normally those who recite history. Is they memorize Purana, and they give historical accounts. So it's a little bit just below a Brahmin. But he was thinking himself so learned and so advanced that he was sitting on a higher seat than all the brahmanas. He was making the point to teach the brahmanas. As we know, then Lord Balaram came into the assembly and everyone bowed to him, but Ramaharshana didn't. And Lord Balaram killed him with a blade of grass. And I think it's there, it's mentioned, Lord Balaram mentions that it's just like someone who has knowledge, so-called, but they don't develop humility, then they're just like an actor on the stage. They don't actually have knowledge, because knowledge should make you humble. That's one of the symptoms of someone who's actually has knowledge, is that they have humility. So if someone is very proud, if someone and they're professing to have knowledge, then that's just hypocrisy. Because actually knowledge should make one humble. Yeah. So he did away with Ramaharshana. That's in the 10th canto. Okay. So this is the first thing that Krishna mentions. So it's very important. Aman vitvam adam vitvam. Yeah. And Arjuna exhibited this as well when he surrendered to Krishna. Yeah. Arjuna wasn't proud. He kind of knew he was in difficulty, and he wasn't trying to hide it. So then he surrendered to Krishna in all humility. Yeah. Okay. All right. Someone like to read this next one here?
I can read.
Go ahead, Mother.
Nonviolence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body. But actually, nonviolence means not to put others into distress. People in general are trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pains. So unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is practicing violence. One should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people. So,
Sorry, Raj Kishore, you need to unmute.
Yeah, you've muted her.
oh, okay.
Yeah, my mistake.
Do you want to read
I was
it
trying to
again,
mute
Mataji?
someone else.
Yeah,
Please
I'll read it
Yeah, please
again.
read again. Yeah.
Okay. Nonviolence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body. But actually, nonviolence means not to put others into distress. People in general are trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pains. So unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is practicing violence. One should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people so that they may become enlightened and leave this material entanglement. This is non-violence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Raj Kishore. Hare Krishna. So anything quite unique about this? What's so unique about this here?
I thought non-violence, Prabhu, was the 4 regulative principles we practice, and one of them is meat eating, because we are causing distress to animals, who can. So okay, let me paraphrase my question. Why are we practicing the not eating meat? Is it relevant with non-violence?
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So, but then in this
To do with
context,
mercy and compassion.
exactly. But in this context, non-violence is not actually about meat eating. It's more about causing distress to any being. Even that could be mental distress.
Yeah, that's why it's very interesting. Prabhupada mentions it more than one time. That's why I was kind of asking for observations on this. Yes.
Yeah.
Non-violence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body.
Yeah.
But it takes a little bit deeper. It means to putting others into distress. Yeah. And then Prabhupada takes it further. By those in the material concept of life. Yeah. So they're suffering. So unless one elevates them, then one is practicing violence.
That's a very strong comment, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, that's why we're part of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and we're trying to contribute some way or other into helping society. some of us may not have the opportunity to directly go out and try and give people Prabhupada's books on Harinam. Yeah. But we're part of a society that is specifically giving knowledge. Yeah. So we may support it in one way or the other. Yeah. So we are doing our bit according to what we can do. Yeah.
Murli Prabhu, I have a question here. So
Yeah.
where you are practicing causing distress to others, so let's say you're in a relationship or an environment with other people, you could have your past traumas or your suppressed emotions, your resentment and everything that you're carrying within you erupting out as triggers. You don't mean to cause harm, but because of your unresolved emotions that are there, that keeps coming out, you might be causing distress to others.
Yes. So what do you do?
What do you do? And that was my question. What do you do? Because I can tell you an example. This has just happened last Sunday. I went in Mana. There was a mentee kind of thing. And I just gone there. And there was another lady who had come 20 minutes late. And you're there, Murli Prabhu?
Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah. 20 minutes late. And as a thing, the facilitator stood up and said, look, you can't come in late. You come 20 minutes late. You
Oh,
either
dear.
don't attend the meeting or you come, that's it. Not late is not accepted. You should have come early. Now she took it personal and she said, why did you target me? Why did you tell me? Why only me? And there was a big outpour, crying. The whole class was put to this thing. Then she had to go console her, half an hour, 45 minutes consoling her. And I was thinking,
Yes.
so this is where I'm asking. So this is a very simple example of somebody who probably has some other, all she had to say was sorry, but it wasn't that. So what happens in this sort of situation, Murli Prabhu?
Well, what happens in this type of situation? Well, I'm trying to think where to start on here. Yeah, I mean, this is why we have to be careful in how we interact, This is why we really want to be, that's why Prabhupada said we should think once, twice, thrice before we may act or say something. Yeah, because it's so easy to get entangled. It's so easy, especially influenced by the modes of material nature. And this is going on all the time, on a daily basis. Yeah. But so to really take this to heart, we should want to be careful how we tread. And so we don't put others into distress. Remember, we read in the 12th chapter, there's this verse that he who is not distressed by anyone or does not put anyone into difficulty is very dear to me. Yeah, that's mentioned in the 12th chapter, is very dear to me. So that's a tall order, but that's what we have to try. And if we're practicing a kinchana bhakti, then it will be that that automatically, and except if someone's envious, like automatically one will not be entangled or one will not say things in such a way that's going to disturb people. But he could say, but what about like Prabhupada? I mean, this question, I think Brandon asked this question recently, wasn't it, Brandon? You asked this question. Yeah, at this point, that Prabhupada, in his preaching, then he definitely upset people, some people. But that's because, there was always envious people. So even if you have good intentions, there's a chance that you're going to upset people, especially envious people. Yeah. It's like, I think Prabhupada brings up, like Arjuna was only superficially, he was doing his duty according to Krishna's direction. So he's not held accountable. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm making sense here. Point I'm trying to make here is that, okay, from one point of view, we have to be careful, understanding this. We should not want to cause distress. Yeah, we should not want to cause distress in ourselves or with others. But there we see the example will be of purified devotees like Srila Prabhupada, then they will act in such a way that they're pleasing to everyone. But there's a caveat there. They're pleasing to everyone except the envious, because the envious will always be envious, especially of those who are saintly. That's just the nature of this material world, you know. So I don't know exactly what answer you was looking for, Madhusudami Radhika. But here I'm saying, but because, you know, that wasn't a good interaction by the sounds of it. That sounds like this wasn't followed.
Yeah.
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 But here, so you can see that that was somehow or another due to the modes of material nature. Then devotees were put into distress. So again, it's acting, being influenced by the modes of material nature, especially the lower modes. If we're in the mode of goodness, then perhaps the devotee, I don't know, would have gone about it in a different way. Perhaps spoke to them afterwards. I mean, I personally, when I'm giving seminars, when someone comes in late, then I don't say anything, especially if I know it's going to cause agitation to like everyone else there. So you want to be, so you have to be careful, you know. Otherwise, I guess what you saw was a typical of not following this, you know. Situation, someone comes late and they get chastised in front of everyone, and it causes whole knock-on effect of different devotees being upset. So perhaps if, with all humility, if you know the devotee, right, you could perhaps point him in this direction, Bhagavad Gita, to not put others into distress. But at the same time, having said that, no matter how you move in this world, there's a good chance you're going to put people into distress. What can you do? That's another side as well. But at least we should try to minimize it as much as possible.
Sometimes saying the truth or being, you know, the way that could cause somebody distress, you know.
The first part?
Saying the truth, like, you know, this is not okay, this is not how you have to behave, something like that. That could put people uncomfortable and put them into distress.
Yeah. Yeah, but we should say the truth in a palatable way. Yeah. Sounds like Papa would just speak the truth. He would speak the absolute truth. And because some people might not be comfortable with it, so different time, place, and circumstance. Yeah. Anybody else? Any other comments on this point? Some other Sadami radicals brought up a typical scene where perhaps this wasn't, you know, kind of followed as such. But here it is. This is non-violence. And then it kind of quite rolls in that the next one is tolerance. So perhaps the person who was, you know, on the other side, okay, the person who was, you know, making a scene or who was chastising the person who came late, perhaps they could have helped to disentangle the situation by being tolerant and just said, oh, please excuse me, sorry, I try not to do it again. Instead of being all offended, don't you know who I am? I don't know what they said about, you know, how can you say this?
She was in tears. She said, that's it, I'm not
tears.
going to do any more class, I'm not
Yeah,
going to do anything like that. And then
it would have been so much easier if she just said, sorry, Prabhu, my fault. End of it. So you can see where there's sometimes there's the mode of passion attracts the mode of passion. You know, so the person who gave it out is the person who took it, and they're clashing with each other. It's just because they're in the same mode, you know. But if one of them was in a mode of goodness, they would have kind of dissipated it straight away. Yeah, if the person who was given a class had not said anything and spoke to them afterwards, no stress, no anxiety. And the person on receiving end, if they had said, "Oh, sorry," no stress, no anxiety. But you can see how much havoc it causes, the modes of material nature, like the mode of passion. But that exchange probably disturbed everyone in the class. We're using this as an example. When it could have been, if someone was at least in the mode of goodness, it would have never happened. So you just analyze the situations which we face and the reversals and the difficulties we face with people sometimes, and they face with us, and the disagreements is all the modes of material nature. It's the modes of material nature. Yeah. Like someone in a mode of passion is just waiting to meet someone else in a mode of passion, then. Yeah. And let's read about 7 o'clock. Let's read about tolerance. Looks like we have to read about that. Okay, I'll just jump in and read here. So reading this here. Okay, so tolerance means that one should be practiced. So here it is. This is what you could say to the lady who came late. Tolerance means that one should be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. If one is engaged in the advancement of spiritual knowledge, there will be so many insults and much dishonor from others. Yeah, just like Prabhupada, yeah. Will get dishonor and insult from others in some place. This is expected because material nature is so constituted. Even a boy like Prahlad, who was only 5 years old, was engaged in the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, was endangered when his father became antagonistic to his devotion. The father tried to kill him in so many ways, but Prahlad tolerated him. And so there may be many impediments to making advancement in spiritual knowledge, but we should be tolerant and continue our progress with determination. And the next chapter happens to be about the three modes of material nature. That's just chapter 14. Okay? So, all right, perhaps we'll pause there. So here you go, Mother Sudami. Mother Sudami gave a live example here. And we can see how on both parties, if they'd have been more in a mode of goodness, it wouldn't have caused so much distress. But we can see how one step wrong can cause a lot of distress. So it's good. Yeah. So it's good to keep this in mind. Okay. Okay, so let's pause there then. And tomorrow we'll continue and we'll look at simplicity. Okay. So thank you, devotees, for joining us. If you have any further questions, sometimes questions may come up, and after we finish, you're quite welcome to send me a text message. I think mostly we have my number. You can do that as well. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Bhagavad
Jai.
Gita
Manor
ki
Prabhu ki jai.
jai. 13 ki jai. Don't forget, look out, tread very carefully in the mode of goodness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.